Dungeness crab is one of the most popular and prized seafood on the west coast of the United States, especially in states like Washington, Oregon, and California. Dungeness crab fishing is not only an important part of the seafood industry but also a popular recreational activity. Here is a description of how to catch Dungeness crab in the U.S. Dungeness crab fishing season usually begins in November and lasts until June of the following year, depending on state regulations. This is the time when crabs mature and reach commercial size. During this season, both professional fishermen and residents can participate in crab fishing. Crab trap, pot. Crab traps are the most common tool for catching Dungeness crab. Cages are usually made of wire and have multiple compartments to hold the crabs. The cages are lowered to the seabed and left for a certain period of time for the crabs to enter. Bait. The bait commonly used to lure crabs into the cage is fish, such as herring or smelt. The bait is placed in special compartments in the cage for easy access by the crabs. Cage release. Fishermen will release crab cages into the water in areas with depths of about 30 to 300 feet, about 9 to 91 meters. The release location should be carefully marked with a buoy with a registration number attached.
19.
Waiting. The cages are usually left for a few hours to a few days. The waiting time depends on experience and weather. Cage collection. After the waiting period, the fisherman will return to the location where the cage was released and pull the cage up by hand or a specialized tractor. If there are crabs in the cage, they will check the size and sex of the crabs. The Dungeness crab fishery in the United States is strictly managed to protect the crab population and the marine environment.
Самый большой. Он только больше становится, да? Вот это да.
26?
Папа, пошел куда-то.
27? Good job, Mom.
Some regulations include size limits. Crabs must be of a minimum size to be retained. Smaller crabs are released back into the ocean to continue growing. Quantity limits. There is a limit to the number of crabs that each fisherman can catch in a day, to prevent overfishing. Gender. Only male crabs are usually caught, while females must be released back into the ocean to maintain the population. In addition to commercial fishing, many local people also participate in crab fishing as a recreational activity. They often go with family or friends, enjoying the ocean air and the pleasure of catching wild crabs. Dungeness crab fishing in the United States is both a commercial and recreational activity, contributing significantly to the local economy and culture. However, compliance with fishing regulations and environmental protection is essential to maintaining this valuable seafood resource. After catching, Dungeness crab is usually processed immediately to maintain its freshness. There are many ways to prepare crab, from simple to complex, but the most popular is still boiling or steaming to preserve the natural flavor. How to boil Dungeness crab. Preparation: after being cleaned, usually washed with clean water to remove mud and sand, the crab will be put into a pot of boiling water. Add a little sea salt to the pot of boiling water to enhance the flavor.
Now we could probably turn the motor off. Basically, you see a knot.
It ain't his first rodeo. Second rodeo.
Boil the crab for about 10 to 15 minutes, depending on the size of the crab. The crab is cooked when the shell turns a bright orange-red color. Enjoy. After the crab is cooked, it can be eaten immediately with melted butter, garlic dipping sauce, or other spices depending on personal preference. Dungeness crab dishes. Dungeness crab is the main ingredient in many delicious dishes. Crab salad. Dungeness crab meat is separated, mixed with green vegetables, butter, and dressing to create a fresh salad. Garlic butter crab. Crab is baked with butter, garlic, and a little seasoning, creating a rich and attractive flavor. Crab cake. Dungeness crab meat is mixed with spices, flour, and fried until golden brown, creating a crispy and delicious crab cake. Crab soup. Crab meat is cooked with cream, vegetables, and spices to create a fragrant crab soup, suitable for cold days. Dungeness crab is not only an important food source but also an indispensable part of the local economy. Crab.
What were we at? 29?
Fishing provides a stable income for many fishing families in coastal states. In addition, Dungeness crab festivals are held annually to attract tourists and honor the tradition of crab fishing, contributing to tourism and community development. Newport Crab Festival, Oregon. This is one of the largest festivals, attracting thousands of visitors each year. The festival includes activities such as cooking, crab eating, and entertainment.
Show that one?
Middle of the trap.
Yeah, it's fine.
Oh, with the bungees?
Yeah.
Keep it so they can gotta be in the pot to eat it.
Dungeness Crab Festival, Washington, in Washington State. This festival focuses not only on food but also on culture and arts related to the ocean and fishing. Although Dungeness crab remains quite popular, the crab fishery also faces many challenges. Climate change, pollution, and overfishing are factors that may affect crab populations in the future. Therefore, scientists and governments are working hard to research and apply sustainable management measures to protect this resource.
We got all the traps in, and we're gonna head off to the rockfish area and see if we can get a little bit more for tacos and dinner.
Dungeness crab is a valuable seafood species not only economically but also culturally and culinarily in the United States. Catching and enjoying Dungeness crab has become an important part of the lives of coastal people. However, to maintain and protect this valuable resource, the whole community needs to work together to comply with regulations and protect the marine environment. Commercial Dungeness crab fishing is a major industry in the western coastal states of the United States, especially Washington, Oregon, and California.
You can tell from the camera lens that we were in quite a bit of rain, but we persevered and got our limits of rockfish, and now we're after crab.
It requires investment in equipment, strict adherence to regulations, and a deep understanding of the marine environment. Below is a detailed description of the commercial Dungeness crab fishing process. Fishing vessels. Commercial crab fishing vessels are typically large, equipped with modern equipment to ensure efficiency and safety during the fishing process. They are often equipped with cranes or winches to pull large crab cages from the seabed. Crab pots. Commercial crab pots are typically larger than recreational crab pots.
There we go. Captain Kevin does it again. Oh my goodness.
Commercial pots average 36 to 40 inches in diameter and are made of stainless steel or galvanized steel to resist corrosion. Each pot can hold up to dozens of crabs depending on size. Bait. The bait used is strong-smelling fish such as herring, mackerel, or salmon. The bait is placed in special compartments so that the crabs cannot be easily removed without entering the cage. Site selection. Before releasing the cages, fishermen need to identify areas with a lot of crabs based on experience or information from previous seasons.
Makes a really great bait. Nice little toss out there. And we're marking our first pot. It's going to be waypoint 108. Alright guys, this one is nice and heavy.
Dungeness crabs usually live in shallow waters with sandy or muddy bottoms. Cage release. At the selected location, the crab cages are released to the seabed with the help of winches and cranes. The cages are released in rows. Each row can contain from 50 to 200 cages, depending on the size of the boat. Marking. Each crab cage is connected to a buoy floating on the surface, with a unique number and color for identification.
Oh, look at that, guys. Look at this pot coming out of the water. Oh, I can barely lift it up. Look, it's so heavy. Holy smokes. Let's get that in the boat.
This makes it easy for fishermen to find the cages when they return after a while. Waiting time. Crab cages are usually left in the water for 24 to 48 hours. This waiting period is enough time for the crabs to enter the cages and be retained. Fishermen usually return after a few days to inspect and harvest the crabs. Cage collection and inspection. The cages are pulled onto the boat using a winch.
Alright guys, this is what we pulled out of that pot. There was 11 crabs. And just for the size reference, I want you guys to be able to see that these things are gauge busters. You know, I try to put the gauge up on it. This gauge goes to 6.5. So it's about a 7.5 inch crab. And then we got some really nice pretty crab here, another gauge buster.
The crabs are then inspected for size and sex. Only male crabs that meet the minimum size requirements are retained. Female crabs and crabs that have not yet reached the required size must be released back to the sea. Fishing license. Fishermen need a special license to engage in commercial crab fishing. The number of licenses issued is usually limited to prevent overfishing. Minimum size. Dungeness crabs must be a minimum size, usually about 16.5 centimeters, 6.5 inches, across the shell. Crabs that have not yet reached this size must be released back to the sea. Quantity limit. There are regulations on the number of crabs that each fisherman can catch in a season. This is to protect the fishery and maintain the crab population in the wild. Fishing season. The commercial crab fishing season typically begins in November or December and ends in spring or early summer. Fishing seasons can vary by state and weather conditions, as well as recommendations from marine biologists. Trap fishing for hairy crabs, kagane, is the main method used by Japanese fishermen to harvest this precious crab. This method is not only effective but also helps to minimize negative impacts on the marine environment. Below is a detailed description of the process of catching hairy crabs using traps. Crab traps, also known as crab cages, are the most important tool in the process of catching hairy crabs. These traps are specially designed to attract hairy crabs and keep them inside without causing harm. Structure of the trap: crab cages are usually cylindrical or box-shaped, made from galvanized steel mesh or strong nylon fibers to withstand water pressure and corrosion from sea salt. The cage size is usually compact, suitable for the size of hairy crabs. A typical cage can be about 50 to 70 centimeters in diameter, with many compartments and entrances so that crabs can easily enter but have difficulty escaping. Entrance: the entrance of a crab cage is usually funnel-shaped, allowing crabs to easily enter to find bait but preventing them from escaping. Some cages are designed with trapdoors that close automatically after the crabs have entered. Escape trap: to protect the environment and comply with regulations, many crab cages are designed with escape traps, a small window that allows smaller or undersized crabs to escape. Bait is an important factor in determining the success of the catch. Fishermen often use baits with strong odors to attract hairy crabs. Type of bait: bait fish such as herring, mackerel, or other seafood such as shrimp and squid are often used as bait. These baits have an attractive odor, easily attracting hairy crabs from a distance. Bait placement: bait is placed in a compartment inside the cage where the hairy crabs can see and smell but cannot be easily removed without entering the cage. This ensures that the crabs have to enter the cage to reach the bait, thereby becoming trapped inside. After preparing the cages and bait, fishermen will drop the traps into the selected sea area. The location of the trap is a major factor in determining the fishing efficiency. Trap drop location: fishermen often choose areas of the seabed with complex structures, where hairy crabs like to live, such as reefs, rock cavities, or places with cold water currents. Depth of the trap drop is usually from 50 to 200 meters, depending on environmental conditions and the time of year. Trap drop in rows: traps are dropped in vertical or horizontal rows on the seabed, with equal distances to increase the ability to catch. Each row can contain from 50 to 200 traps, depending on the size of the boat and the number of traps the fishermen carry. Trap marking. Each trap is connected to a buoy floating on the sea surface, with a number and color attached for easy identification by fishermen. This buoy helps to determine the location of the trap and facilitates retrieval. After releasing the traps, the fisherman will wait for a certain period of time before retrieving them. This waiting period can last from a few hours to a few days, depending on the experience of the fisherman and the weather conditions. Waiting time. During this period, the hairy crabs will be attracted to the smell of the bait and then to the traps. To optimize the number of crabs caught, fishermen often adjust the waiting time based on their actual experience and observations of the crab population in the area. Trap retrieval. After the waiting period is over, the fisherman will return and retrieve the traps using a crane or winch system on the boat. The crab cages are pulled onto the boat, and the fisherman will check each cage for crabs. Once the traps are pulled up, the fisherman will inspect and classify the crabs right on the boat. Size check. The hairy crabs will be measured to ensure they meet the minimum standards required by regulations. Crabs that are smaller than the allowed size will be released back into the sea to give them a chance to mature. Grading. Crabs that reach their size are graded by weight and quality. The more valuable crabs are usually kept for sale to restaurants or export, while smaller crabs may be sold at local markets. Hairy crabs are a high-value seafood, so post-harvest preservation is extremely important to maintain meat quality. Onboard storage. After harvesting, hairy crabs are kept alive or stored at low temperatures, usually in ice-filled containers or in refrigerated holds on ships. This helps maintain the crab's freshness until they are brought back to shore. Onboard transport. After returning to port, hairy crabs are quickly transported to processing facilities or seafood markets. This process needs to happen quickly to ensure that the crabs retain the highest quality when they reach consumers. The Japanese method of catching hairy crabs using traps is an elaborate process that requires technical skill and care to ensure efficiency and environmental protection. Japanese fishermen use traps not only to optimize crab yields but also to minimize negative impacts on crab populations and other marine species. Compliance with regulations on size, quantity and